What's up, coach? Today we're diving into one of the common topics that I hear a lot and that honestly I felt as well for a long period of time. So if that's you, you're not alone. But if you've been feeling like the market's just too saturated for you to actually get in and make a difference in the online space and specifically on Instagram, then this episode is for you. Today I'm going to show you how to shift your perspective and how to really look into how to use what's already there, your competitors or colleagues, however you want to frame it, to help you make more money. Because the truth of the matter is, having more people on the platform who do what you do is a good thing. And I'm about to show you why. Now, this is something I was actually just sharing with my accelerators on the mindset call or our energy management call, because I was sharing that I am someone who is super passionate about education. I'm really passionate about coaching. And it's really easy for me to dive into a lot of teaching. Do this, do this, do this, do this. And one of the hardest things that is hard for me specifically is to just really crack open a sense of vulnerability to share with you a little bit about what it is that I go through and give you insights into me as the human versus, just me as the human, me and me as the business owner, rather than just sharing so much about what to do in the educational component and why I'm right. I was sharing with the accelerators that it comes from a place of trying to be protective, trying to prove myself after growing up in a very amazing household, but critical. So sometimes it's very hard for me to share stories because there's also parts of me that feel like I don't want to show a hint of weakness, a hint of, oh, maybe she doesn't know what she's doing. Because for me, it feels like a door or area of opportunity to expose and open myself up for criticism or for whatever. It's my protective shield. However, I'm sharing this with you because it's part of my breakthrough in this topic, specifically around competition, or feeling like there's too much noise, or feeling like why even bother when there's someone out there already who's smarter, better, whatever, name it, better than me. And I'm sharing this because of three main points, because I think that this is the high achiever Achilles heel, if you will. If you're like me and you're like our accelerator coaches, you are likely a super high achiever, which means that you just keep moving the goalpost. You get a goal and then you move the goalpost and you just keep seeing how all these areas of opportunity, which is such a good thing. I don't want to take that away. And there's room to continue to achieve without acknowledging all of what you have already done, which happens to me and to so many people. And I think part of what drives that, at least for me, is this drive to prove, this want to prove, this let me show you how amazing it can be. And while all of that is true, it's not coming from this place of I need to prove it to demonstrate my worth, because once I do this, then I'll be X, whatever noise usually gets into a lot of high achievers' minds. So if that's you, you're not alone. I'm bringing this up because it's really important, because while I was going through all of those experiences, part of what kept showing up for me was, well, this person's doing that, this person's doing this. And it kept feeling like, oh, I can't, who am I to be doing this? I can't be sharing that. I can't be doing that because so-and-so's already doing it. Or, whatever the case may be. It wasn't until I made these three important shifts that we're going to break down in the episode today that I started to release any of the competitive nature or feeling like there wasn't enough, that I started to really get the results that I wanted. And in order to get those results, it required me to show up in a way that I hadn't really been honest with myself about showing up in. And we're going to talk about that today because it's part of it. And so the first thing, it's a little bit of a mindset hack, but it's important to address, is that if you are feeling any type of envy, any type of anger towards someone who has something that you don't, or you're feeling jealousy, or you're feeling the opposite, feelings of, oh man, they're so amazing, I wish I had that, or they're so amazing, I guess I can't do it. Whatever those feelings are, they're actually rooted in lack. Meaning they're rooted in this concept, or the hidden meaning is, oh, they already have it, which means I can't have it. Or there's this undertone of, oh, there's not enough clients, because if they have it, that means that I can't have it. And so you might, even if you think, oh no, I'm abundant, oh no, I know that that there's enough for me, or maybe you're not even there yet, right? So what I really, really, really want to, highlight in this episode is that I had done a lot of work. I felt like I was already living in abundance. I had felt like, oh, I'm finally hitting 40K months. And I was already feeling like, oh, I'm getting it. And I've done the personal development work. And this was one of those hidden, sneaky areas in my life where I realized, oh, this is where I'm actually still operating from lack, or operating from this feeling of like, there is never not enough. Because if you change the context of those feelings, meaning, let's say, instead of thinking it like, oh, they have all this oxygen, why do they have the oxygen and I don't? Okay, now outlining, like, I want to just go ahead. I preface and say, like, I know that there are people who have a lung disease, or maybe they need support and oxygen, right? I know, as a counterphobic 6, my mind automatically goes for the alternative and like, well, yeah, but there's an exception. Like, I get it. There's always going to be an exception to prove the rule. But if you really just go for the majority of people, nobody's walking around going, oh, wow, she has oxygen, so I guess that means I can't have oxygen. Oh, she's so lucky and she gets to breathe. She gets all the time, or she gets all the oxygen and I don't, right? We don't usually think about our resources like that. We just think, oh, well, that's just a given. So when I really heard that kind of perspective, I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. Why can't I feel the same way about opportunity, about clients, about what I'm sharing? Okay, so that was very interesting for me. And it was that shift that really helped me uncover that, oh, I'm still in this area of my life. I'm looking at places, or finding places where I think, oh, I'm actually not operating from abundance. I'm not operating from lack. And so, or I am operating from, oh, there's not enough. And that's a sneaky hidden way that it was showing up for me. And and for me personally, I was finding it in jealousy, these feelings of like, oh, they have it. It means I can't. It means I don't. And what I realized, and what caused me to really take a closer look at that, was I noticed the people that I look up to. I noticed that the people who I, have the businesses that I want in any context, like all different kinds of contexts, they, like, let's just take a singer, for example. I was watching this clip on this incredible singer that I love, right? You know her, Kelly Clarkson, not a secret. I was looking at, like, it was like, I think it was like a clip of her Kelly Clarkson show, and I don't know why. It just came across my scroll, which I don't really do. I scroll so infrequently, but my kids were really into Wicked, so we were finding Wicked clips. I'm gonna tie this together, but promise, just hang with me, okay? But so because I was showing my kids Wicked stuff, I was seeing Ariana Grande, and I came across this Kelly Clarkson clip. And what was interesting as I was watching this clip is Kelly and Ariana were singing together, and they were just so effusive in their love and support of each other's craft. There wasn't a hint of oh, she can sing and I can sing, so that must mean I'm not that must mean I'm not a good singer. There's not enough listeners for me. They weren't even thinking about it like that. They were singing, celebrating each other, and I thought, huh. And then I started to look at other, and I had been going down this path. I have uncovered this in many, many places, but this was another experience and more evidence stacking, which we're going to talk about in a second. I'm constantly looking for evidence stacking to help back up the new belief or the new claim that I want to really embody. And so I have been actually working on this for a while. So this was just another example of me seeing evidence and going, oh, that's another example of colleagues, competitors, and I'm putting now competitors in quotes, of supporting each other. And so before, when I was starting to begin this process, and this is something I help my clients deal with when they're trying to navigate the no. So you always hear me talking about the 3 essential systems. Well, there is that 4th essential system, which is how you navigate the no. And it's the energy management system. It's how you can care about everything and nothing at the same time, which is, living on the razor's edge, which is what my mentor says to me all the time. And so navigating the no, knowing that most people are going to say no, can you navigate that disappointment? And so if that's the case, then and you're ready to navigate that no and navigate that disappointment, then part of it is going to be the ways that you can acknowledge the thoughts and feelings that are keeping you back and then wanting to shift it, by backing up the claim of the new shifts that you want to look at. Okay. So anyway, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I'll go back to this, I swear. Anyway, so I'm evidence stacking it with clips like the Kelly Clarkson and the Ariana. But when I first started this process, I had to really look for like, well, where are the areas of opportunity that colleagues and competitors, quote unquote, are collaborating? And there's tons of them. Like if you look on Instagram, Brock Johnson is always celebrating other Instagram growth colleagues. You see them commenting on each other's stuff. You see other people, other coaches who teach business building, celebrating or affiliating with other coaches who have business building coaches or business building programs. Then you have other coaches or certifications that are celebrating and honoring other people's certifications, which is huge. And it's also was very interesting to me as I was starting to go through this process and evidence stacking is that everyone wants to look up and they want to, get the accolades and they want to get acknowledged by the people that are above them, forgetting that the people that are next to them that are growing together. It's so funny. Listen, we're all about Disney in this household. And because of my kids, but quite frankly, not really. I love Disney too. So, my daughter was singing in Mufasa, love it or hate it, but there's that song in there that Rafiki sings about like, you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And it was interesting because I was like, yes, that's what happens in business building, because people, when they are growing and growing together, they're going to go farther and they end up helping each other. So anyway, that was just something that I was constantly looking at. So then I started realizing, when I could actually shift that perspective and realize that there truly is plenty for everyone. And so the other reason is if you're sitting here thinking, okay, Beverly, well, how? So before we even start getting to the evidence stacking, when I noticed that this belief, or if you're noticing that like, my competitor, have any type of competition, we have to do 3 things. Okay. And the first is, number 1, acknowledge that the thought and the feeling is there. Okay. That's like, you have to process it. Otherwise, you're just going to keep pressing it down. You have to acknowledge it's there. And then what I like to do is I like to ask myself like, well, what's causing me to say that? Like, why do I think this? Where's the issue? Can I get to the root? Okay. And then I start like really listing it out. Like, what are all the reasons? Like, well, there are coaches that, a person really it doesn't make sense to have 2 trainers or whatever the issues are. Like there's a reason I have this thought. What are they? Okay. Then I need to, in order to shift it, I have to like really make a case for it. I have to be a lawyer against these reasons as to why this is not true. And it's not enough to say that's not true. You have to show your brain that it's not true and then back up the claim, like with evidence stacking. And so part of it is I had to look at it a couple of ways in order to shift this perspective. Is number 1 is to remember that, has there ever been a time in your life where you thought that your opinion didn't matter, but you realized that it did? Like I go back to an election year or last year when everyone was like, your vote, people think all the time that your vote doesn't matter, but then it does. Or times where you realized, I thought everybody knew what a protein, what a carbohydrate was. And then you have an experience of like, I lived with this person for the whole of the pandemic who was over 30 and she didn't realize that a vegetable was a carbohydrate. Go and look for other people and have conversations with people who realize or recognize or don't know that is, that what you know is true. Okay. Number 2. Then number 3, the other thing too, when I'm like going deeper in that question and I'm really sitting with that question, is I'll ask, has there ever been a time where I heard something or I learned something in a book and then I heard it a different way when someone else said it, or it finally landed in a different way, like when I reread the book? Like, do you read Harry Potter or whatever your favorite book is and forget components of it? Of course, because there are things that you can understand, but that's not the same thing as knowing. Think about the first time you learned how to deadlift. Do you still deadlift that way now that you have years underneath you? Probably not. You got stronger, you got more skilled, and your clients have the same experience. And yet we don't give ourselves the same grace when it comes to building our business. Then number 3, now I talked about this in the energy restoration podcast that I give to my clients, but the third thing that I had to do was go all in on me. And this is going to sound like you likely have heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it in a different way because I realized, and this was from a very particular experience that happened right at the beginning of 2025, but and end of 2024. But I realized that I had really been coming from this place of, personal development. And I feel I see this a lot in high achievers where we're always like, we need to get better, we need to get smarter, we need to do something outside of us for whatever reason to get to the next level. And I think that there is this component, especially in personal development, where you hear like, you need to shift your identity. You need to do all these things. But the truth actually is you need to remember who you are, because there's a reason you want to do this, whatever this is, coach, train, whatever, and not be a kindergarten teacher or be anything else. There's a reason you want to do this. So go all in on you. This is going to require a different level of self-esteem and image and self-love and worth. People really bundle those two concepts together, but they're different. The value of your existence and how you love yourself is different than the esteem and the image and how you view yourself, the confidence in yourself. And we blend them together and it's different. And when you can really focus on those two things and really, I notice this a lot in my daughters. I know I don't talk about this a lot, but I notice this a lot in my daughters. My daughter Abigail has a very high sense of self-worth and high sense of self-image, self-esteem. Nobody loves Abby more than Abby loves Abby. And I just think that it's such a gift. And every time, and that magnetizes her. People love her. She's not super outgoing. She's not super like, I'm going to be everybody's friend. She's not in your face. She's actually very reserved. She's very, and a leader. But she brings people to her. People want to be around Abby because Abby doesn't need to be around you. She doesn't. She is very happy on her own and she loves to be with you. And honestly, there are days in my life and times in my life where I think I want to be more like Abby today. How can I be like Abby today? Because Abby loves Abby. And I remind myself that it's also reflections. When I see this is the stuff I'm working on. And my daughter Gwendolyn, I'm working on her. We are working on this. We are helping her develop her sense of self-worth and her sense of self-esteem. And it's been challenging. But I know that this is happening, and I know that this is important because it's also the work that I'm doing for me. And when you can really step into that, this is going to help you go all in on the business, on you, and then show up differently on social. Because this is what is going to bulletproof you against the people that are going to have different opinions than you. And that, it's easy to say, it's this paradox, right? Where people say, build, know, like, and trust, which is also why I'm not really into that. I think that goes against what it is that it is required of you to be a good coach, because sometimes you have to speak to people's potential and onto the garbage that they bring in the room. But we're constantly bombarded with, but people, need to buy from people that they know, like, and trust, which isn't true. People buy from people who feel competent. And they buy from you because you are so convicted that their process is going to help them. In fact, I'm not entirely convinced that people are walking around feeling so good about, feeling like, oh man, I just love the grocery store walkers. No, they buy from them because they feel so bad about themselves and feel afraid that if they don't, that they're going to die. So that's not how people start making buying decisions. And so that's why that's why I, the people pleaser in me is like, oh, if you're so focused on trying to build know, like, and trust, but don't care what everyone thinks, like that's a paradox. That doesn't work. That causes you to be bland. No, when you can really step into your self-worth and your self-esteem and really love yourself like your life depended on, which is a book, and I highly recommend it. Like, love yourself like your life depended on it, because frankly, it does. Because then you can really step into that space of what is required to stand apart from the crowd. Because you're not trying to make other people wrong, because you're not trying to be right. You are standing for the people who need you and calling them in and celebrating your competitors or your colleagues I like to call them colleagues. They're not competitors. I'm not competing. There's no competition because there's plenty. There's plenty. And so once you shift that perspective, then, and which is going to require you to go all in on yourself, love yourself, and have high self-esteem so that you can show up and do what is required, which is share your message in a very specific way so that your people call in, so that your people come in. And it was going to require you to be okay with disagreeing with friends and colleagues and sharing who you are and what you do. And then you can evidence stack against that. Like, oh, well, I'm not, there is no competition. Okay. Very important. Also, I also want to share this because it's also a really important fact. And then we're going to talk about saturation and how you actually cut through that noise once you do all of these work. I'll leave you with some tangibles. The thing with the fact that there are competitors, now that you've, really kind of shifted your perspective on that, it's really a good thing. Because success leaves clues. And you don't need to reinvent the biomechanics. You need to be convicted in the way that you do it because there's plenty for you. Okay. So it's interesting because I had this, this experience with one of my accelerators where we were really working and she was working hard, and has been working hard and continues to. She's amazing. She's going to be amazing. But I remember one time we had this call and I said to her, who has your business? And she said, I don't know, nobody. And I remember thinking, well, that's something to look at. Now, it'd be different, right, if we were first to market and if we were being innovative and nobody has their business, which is amazing. That is usually amazing and very lucky and rare. And I've had that experience of working with someone who got to be first to market. Now, what I recognized and realized when this person was and I've worked with a couple of people that are lucky to be first to market. That is luck, okay? And hard work, but it is very lucky when you're first to market. It means you don't have to do any of what I'm going to talk about next. It means that you just put out something and people buy it. It means that you're first to market and you're like, hey, this solves this problem and you want this, get this. And then it literally you just blink and people are buying from you. Okay. Sometimes that is worse because that kind of success cannot oftentimes be reverse engineered. Okay. So that was not happening in this case. Okay. So if you're not just flush with all these creatives, you're likely not first to market. Okay. Or if you're not just flush with all of the wants and revenues and desires of your heart, then you're likely not first to market. But if you are, so with that said, if nobody has your business, then that oftentimes means that we need to take a closer look because success leaves clues. Have you created an offer that people tell you that they want, they don't really want? Here's an example. People need to learn how to tie their shoes, but how many courses are out there on how to tie your shoes? This is likely not very many. Zero. I'm going to go ahead and say zero. But I'm gonna I'll quantify it because I'm not entirely sure. It's possible that they're out there, but are you the exception that proves the rule? Because it doesn't have to be hard. It gets to have more ease. It gets to have more efficient ease. And part of that is, right, we're either not dialing in the messaging or we're, the offer, or maybe the offer has room to be viable. And so the fact that you have competitors means that it's a good thing. It means that success leaves clues. It means that there's room for us to do, sophistication in our messaging. So this is going to lead to the last and final thing, is that your offer needs or market saturation. All that means is that it requires a new level of market sophistication, meaning the communication of the value. Okay. So this comes from a book called Breakthrough Advertising. I've talked about this on the show before, and it's very dense and it's very expensive. So I'm going to do my best to just summarize it. But there are 5 levels of market saturation that require 5 levels of market sophistication. The first is to market. So the example I always give is Amelia Earhart is the first woman pilot. She died and she didn't make it, but everyone knows her name. Nobody knows the second, the third, and the fourth. And it doesn't matter that they got there faster. It doesn't matter that they got there more efficiently. And it doesn't matter that they even got there alive. What matters is that they weren't first. So first to market literally just gets to be the first to invent this idea. But that doesn't mean that they're the only ones that get to generated business. Like I always think of like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's, considered, the father of fitness or grandfather or godfather or whatever. But I always think of him as like someone who's, you know, in would be considered a first to marketplace. I would not be a coach or a trainer if he was my trainer. And I have nothing against him. He's not the vibe for me. And that's fine. That's a good thing, right? Another reason why it's good to have different people, because if I had to learn from just one person and I can't listen to them, like, oh, that would suck. And I don't want that. So it's a good thing that there are different options. So you have first to market, okay? Then the second layer of market saturation is when people have heard of it. So they're like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that airplane thing is. Okay. So in order to go from first to market, now you kind of have to layer in your process, essentially. What is your way of doing it? Or actually, you're going to layer in like a different, core premise, essentially. What is a different option of doing that? Like maybe it's not like just any airplane. It's like a different kind of airplane. Okay. It's going to be a different core premise. And then you go to market saturation 3. Okay. Now, market saturation 3 is not only are there a whole bunch of different, like there's just a whole bunch of different core premises or different options like keto or like there's airplanes and different things of airplanes, like different types of airplanes. Like there's a whole bunch, okay, of options, and the market's super aware now. So now you've got your core premise, and now you have to layer in your specific process. Like this is your Whole30 or your keto, but now you have like your keto. Like this is your process or your method that is going to use that's going to have the same principles, but it's going to be different. Okay. It's your unique mechanism, essentially. And so then you're going to get into the fourth layer of market saturation, which is going to be where not only is the market inundated with options to solve the problem, the market has now, not only do they have so many options, but they think they know what to do. And so when you get here, so you're here, so you've got all these other things, okay? You've got all these 3 components, like you know what it is that you're doing. You've got your core premise, you've got your unique mechanism, and now you're in that 4th level. And so now what we have to do is we have to shift perspective to back up the claim of why we have to make a case for why your stuff is in the 4th level. And then in order to transcend to the 5th, which is become one, the market of one, in a market of one, is to layer in the essence of you, be the niche. So this is where you are going all in on you with a reason to back up the claim for knowing that your unique mechanism, which has this specific core premise with this specific, in this specific market, that is how you transcend to become one in the market of one, because there's only you. So that's how your competitors can make you more money, because now you know that this is what it takes. The success leaves clues, and there's plenty for me. And there is. And if you need help with that, then send me a DM and we'll just chat about all the different options, because right now there are so many different ways for you to double your impact and income, specifically online, whether you're starting or scaling.